What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Jumpmaster X podcast. And today we're going to be talking about, do you need to squat deep to jump higher? How necessary is that? How important is that? Do you even need to squat deep to maximize your vertical? And we're also going to be covering how you can improve your squat depth and transform your squats so they look as beautiful as an Olympic weightlifter's squat, essentially, because both Tom and myself and many athletes we've trained have had issues with deep squatting and improving their mobility, and we've helped them solve that issue and solved it within ourselves. It's simpler than you think as well. It's not too complicated to address this. But let's jump into the first question. Do you need to squat deep to jump higher, Tom?
So short answer is no, you do not need to squat deep to jump higher. Like you don't need to squat arse to grass to jump higher. But I will say that not every squat is created equally, meaning that depending on your height, your anatomy, it's going to be different comparing your squat, how it looks, the weight compared to someone else's squat, how theirs looks and the weight that they're doing. Earlier, we're talking about Gavin, who's one of our athletes, who is 6'8". So he's quite tall to be squatting like super deep, but he has the ability to squat arse to grass. Should he obviously always do that? Probably not. He doesn't always necessarily have to do that. But then we also have the point where because he's so tall, right, even just loading like 70, 80 kilos and going arse to grass is going to be very hard for him to do because his femurs are so long and they're going to be going so far out, right? Comparing the 70 kilo squat of Gavin compared to Austin doing it, and then even more extreme comparing that to me, it's going to be very different. It's a completely different ball game. But it'll be a lot more difficult for him just because of his height, right? So, on the other side of things, we got an athlete called, I don't, depends what he wants to go by, Irving. But yeah, he's like 5'5". He's like an ex-powerlifter. Has done a bit of Olympic weightlifting, not too much though. He's 5'5". So, I think his max back squat is 185 at like 69 kilos body weights. Very strong, but because he's so short, he needs to be even stronger.
Yeah, it's safe to say that's not strong enough for a guy that's 5'5".
Yeah. And that's like, I don't even know what percent, that's like well over 2 times body weight. But because of his height, he just has to be so strong. Whereas Gavin, if he ever got to a 2 times body weight squat at 6'8", he would be jumping high.
Yeah, so that's he squats 2.68 times his body weight. So I just divided, for everyone listening, I just divided 185 by 69 and that got his relative strength number. So he probably needs to squat like 3 times body weight while jumping more and getting faster. But okay, so the question is, why can't someone just half squat all the time? Why do they need to deep squat?
Well,
Or even take it a step further,
yeah.
quarter squat? Because sprinters mostly only quarter squat, and they're doing
Yep.
pretty well in
Yep.
terms of how explosive they are.
Yep. Yeah. Well, first
I'm
thing
just
I'd say
playing devil's
to that
advocate.
argument is, yeah. So first thing I'll say, sprinting is very, sprinters are born, not made. I will say that. I'm not saying that you can't get faster. Yeah, obviously there's there's an element of training for top end speed training. What was the point you said before that? You said half squatting, right?
Yeah, so sprinters quarter squat.
Yeah,
Like,
they do,
why does someone
but they
need to do a
also
full squat
are.
to jump higher?
Yeah.
Sprinters are pretty explosive.
Okay, so one of the main negatives about doing quarter squats is it does get to the point where you just have to load like insanely high loads onto your back. And it's just like, it's really not the best thing to do long term. Maybe here and there it's okay. But I will also say this, a lot of higher end sprinters these days actually do full depth back squats. So if we're talking about the current Olympic champion, Noah Lyles, he is very strong in a deep barbell back squat. Would you believe? It's over 160, bro, kg. And he's only like 73 probably. I don't know if he's not that heavy.
Okay,
He's
so he
strong, bro.
squats over 2x.
Yeah, bro, easy. No worries for him.
Yeah, of course he
Absolutely no
does.
worries.
Of
Yeah,
course he
bro.
does. Okay, so what are the benefits you get from doing a full squat? Like why do you need to full squat versus say doing a half squat or quarter squat? Like what are the benefits you get from that versus doing those partial ranges of motion? Like, and how does that translate into actually jumping higher?
Like I said before, obviously the deeper you squat, the less you're going to be able to load it compared to a half squat, compared to a quarter squat. There's the health component. It's definitely better because you don't have to load as much weight to get a stimuli. The actual muscular adaptations you get, so the hypertrophy you can get from a full deep back squat is going to be much higher than it is in a half squat, than it is in a quarter squat. There's that. I'd also argue that for knee health, assuming that you're fully healthy, doing a full range arms to grass back squat long term is going to be very healthy and very good for your knees, assuming that you build it up correctly and build it up slowly. It's going to build a lot of injury resilience in your joints and your tendons. So, there's that aspect. And I think that second portion of the squat, there was a study showing that the glute activation you get is very, very, very high compared to doing a quarter squat or a half squat again. So there's a lot of gains to make in that, second portion of the squat that you wouldn't be getting otherwise if you were to cut your depth short. That being said, if you can't get to depth, whether that's because of an injury, like your knees hurt or whatever, or your anatomy, which I'd argue really would only apply to maybe like, I don't know, 1 in 50 people, 1 in 100 people, where literally the anatomy doesn't allow it. But from my experience, from Austin's experience, given enough time and patience, we've had some pretty bad cases of mobility. We've gotten them to be able to squat arse to grass. One of them being himself, Austin, very bad mobility to start off with, and then the other one being myself, terrible mobility. Just watch my early YouTube videos, compare it to now, completely different looking squat.
Yeah. So one of the big keys when you do a deep squat is in the bottom position, two muscles are in their most lengthened position, and that's the quadriceps and that's the glutes. And what are key drivers to jumping higher? Those two muscles, getting your glutes stronger
and running faster,
getting your quadriceps stronger, and you get better, shown in the science time and time again, you get better muscular adaptation and development when those muscles are loaded and under tension in more lengthened positions. So if you're not getting into a deep enough position, then you're missing out on those benefits you could have been getting. Now, not to say you're still going to get those benefits, say, doing a half squat, you will, but just not to the extent of just going deeper and getting those muscles in a more lengthened position. It's kind of like just doing a calf raise and not getting any sort of stretch by any means. Like, it's going to limit adaptation through that muscle group. So it's essentially the same thing when you squat. Now, there's times in your training where you will do partial reps, and there's times where we program into guys training partial ranges of motion. But for the most part, you should be deep squatting for these key reasons. That is the muscular development you get, the loading through that stretched position, everything like that. Also, doing a 2-foot jump, it requires ankle mobility, it requires hip mobility, and if you're deep squatting, then you're continuously reinforcing mobility through your hips and ankles, because to deep squat, you have to have good mobility through your hips and ankles, or at least a certain degree, which can indirectly help you jump higher for those reasons. So I would say that's another key argument there too.
Yeah, bro. It'll let you hit, those better 2-foot jump positions. Because if you're all very tight in the lower body, you can't even squat like, half squat without your heels raising. Your hips are all jacked up. You have no hip mobility. You'll be able to jump off 2 foot, but you're literally losing out on 3 inches of vertical. So yeah, like Austin said, they can come hand in hand. You get better mobility to squat, you can jump higher. You can also train better, which allows you to jump higher. You keep squatting, you keep the mobility. That's going to let you hit the right positions. And again, you're going to jump higher. So as you can see, there's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of benefits here.
Yeah, even from a tendon standpoint as well. Like we talked about muscles, but from a tendon standpoint as well, you get better adaptations through the quad and I guess patellar tendon, getting in that more deep position too. So you're literally going to build up your tendons more, which will help prevent knee pain. Like, so the tendon, but also the muscle. So you're going to build up those two things more. To put it in simple terms, you're going to build up those two things more. And in the long term, that's going to help prevent or reduce your chances of getting knee pain. Like, I rarely get knee pain, and even when I do now, it does not flare up nearly as bad or for as long since getting far stronger in a full range of motion on a squat. I'm just far more resilient now. Everything's just far more resilient. And I know you have the same thing as well, Tom.
Yeah. Like, whether it used to be like a month, to rehab a knee, like right now it's like half a week to a week, like max. If I have like a bad knee pain flare up, yeah, literally half a week of like chilling out, let it come good, does its thing, runs its course.
Okay, so we covered why you need to deep squat to jump higher. So how do we actually go about achieving this and improving your depth on a squat? Now, number one, the easiest and the thing that's going to give you the quickest outcome, like almost straight away, is elevating your heels. Like 100%. If you have any trouble deep squatting, you must not even think about it. Oh, should I you must elevate your heels. It's gonna fix your depth and you're gonna get lower pretty much straight away. I squat with heel elevation. Tom squats with heel elevation. It's just not obvious because we're wearing shoes, because it's built into our shoes. We're wearing Olympic weightlifting shoes, but it's an absolute must. And basically, what that does is it gives you artificial ankle mobility, essentially. So it allows your knees to go over your toes a little bit more easily. You'll notice if you were to say do a squat on your toes, it's easier to squat lower. Essentially, having heel elevation does the same thing, but provides you more stability when you go to squat. So that's an absolute must. Even if you have good squat depth, I would still elevate your heels to ensure you're loading your quadriceps enough anyways. So if your goal is to jump higher, you want to jump higher off 2 feet, then just elevate your heels. It's not even a question. Do it.
Yeah, and what you can do is you can actually let the weight work for you. So say it's week 1, if we're thinking about the plates in the gym, get the thickest one because your ankle mobility and hip mobility is terrible. Your first squat session, use that. Maybe the squat session after, choose a slightly smaller plate, and you can work your way down to something a little bit, more reasonable. Because I don't know how high your heels are in your shoes. I think they're half inches or an inch. Maybe
I don't know.
points. It's not extreme though. It's not like putting a 20-kilo bumper plate under your ankles. That's, at least probably an inch and a half, 2 inches, quite extreme. And if you can work your way down like that, you can actually use the weight to help you, it pushes you almost into that deep squat position. It's going to allow you to work those tissues, especially while you're warm, when the tissues are most compatible. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's going to allow you to work on your mobility, whilst you're warm. That's where you're going to see a lot of gains long term.
Yeah. Even if you have to use more ankle mobility, don't feel bad. Jordan literally uses Olympic weightlifting shoes plus plates under his heels, and he's one of the highest jumpers in the world, greatest dunker of all time. So literally, don't feel like you're cheating. Don't feel bad for doing that. It's just you're literally cheating yourself by not doing that. So do it.
Yeah, bro. Especially if you feel.
Yeah. I was gonna say you brought up a key point as well. I was gonna move on, but warming.
I was just gonna say that, especially if you're one of those guys who's quite prone to making their squats super hip dominant, you start leaning over and it becomes a good morning on the way up. That's a case where you probably need a little bit more heel elevation to keep that torso upright and actually bias the stuff that we want you to be biasing.
100%. Okay, so next thing, you actually brought it up. Warming up properly can go a long, long way to improving your squat depth. So your mobility will, after rising your body temperature and getting blood into all the local muscle groups that you're going to be using, will improve right away because your brain senses, hey, it's safe to enter this range now. I'm not cold, I'm not stiff, all the muscles got blood in them, I'm warmed up. So your brain literally goes and relaxes. Oh, okay, I can go into this range now. I'm not going to hurt myself. And that's half of what lack of mobility is. It's your brain just creating tightness to protect itself, essentially. So going through a proper warm-up. So say you walk in the gym, you're cold, you go on the treadmill, you jog for 5 minutes. Right after that, if you try to squat before that and then after that, your depth will drop a few inches straight away just from having that proper warm-up. So warm up properly prior to squatting. Have you had experiences with that, Tom?
Yeah, bro. So it's literally so simple as that. Test it before your 5-minute warm up, test it after. Do no ankle mobility drills in between, and your or hip mobility, and your squat mobility will be better, literally just from getting warmer. So I was going to say that earlier, but I completely forgot. The easiest way to improve your ankle mobility is don't try and squat cold. Don't do the first thing you walk in the gym. Don't get under the bar and try and squat. Go do a general warm up, then maybe do some ankle mobility drills, hip mobility drills, then try and squat, because then you're getting warm, you're getting the mobility drills, and then you're squatting. So
yeah, I probably want to clarify something as well. When we say general warm up, I wouldn't say going on a bike or rowing nearly has the same effect as say running or doing a dynamic warm up where you're doing skips and all that sort of stuff. I would argue those things have a greater effect on, because you're getting blood into the hamstrings, the glutes, everything. Your hips are being used, your hip flexors are being used. It's opening up everything more, way more. than say just jumping on a bike, having your hips in that short-term position. Yeah, you're getting warm, your body temperature's rising, but I would argue it doesn't nearly have the same effect as jumping on a treadmill or doing skips and doing a full dynamic warm-up.
Yeah. And plus, during that time when you're running, obviously your ankles like dorsiflexing and plantar flexing, like back and forth, back and forth. So,
Yeah.
you are working it in like a small degree, small range. And yeah, like you said, you're getting blood flow in there. So again,
Yeah.
make sure you do this stuff before your session because it's not
Yeah.
just a case of making your squat look pretty. It literally means every, leg day, you're going to get more out of it than you would otherwise. So you're just optimizing the gains you can make on, a given leg day.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So next thing, actually addressing ankle mobility, hands down the number one thing I've found, and it just works like just better than everything else. Everything else is almost a waste of time versus
I know what you're
doing
going to
this.
say, yeah.
In my experience, is doing a banded ankle mobilization. So that's where you will elevate your foot on a box, have the band tied to something behind you. So where the band's pulling down on your ankle, your talus bone, pulling down and back, so pulling it back out of the way. So it's literally pulling your bone out of the way. Because very often a lot of people we train, they play basketball and other sports, and they have had numerous ankle injuries in the past, which affects their ankle mobility. So their ankles are crazy tight. They just have no movement through there. So this, because I had the same issue as well, doing this, like if you can do it, if you have a lot of trouble with your ankles, doing it daily, and then after a period of time, just moving into doing it just prior to squatting, it does wonders for ankles and doing it for repetitions, not holding the position, but doing it for repetitions and moving in and out, trying to push your knee over your toes with the band pulling back and down. That's the key. If the band's not pulling back and down. And another thing is you have to take your shoe off to do it properly as well. So shoe has to be off, band has to be pulling back and down, pulling that bone out of the way, and then driving your knee forwards. Over time, that'll drastically enhance your ankle mobility more than anything else I've found throughout my coaching and training career.
Make sure you have your heel on the box. Don't elevate your heel to get more.
Yeah, your foot has to be higher than what the band is tied to. So your band tied to a pole, and you're kind of going into a lunge position and then pushing your knee over your toes. And that'll address and fix pretty much. Because the thing is, a lot of people, like they have tissue with the ankle, they have tissue restrictions in terms of the muscle just being tight. Yeah, sure. But a lot of the time, it's literally like the bone is restricting people's ankle from moving. They get tightness in the front of their ankle, and that's what the band is so important to pull the talus bone back and down, so then it's no longer restricting you. It opens up that whole area, and you might feel a little bit of pinching and uncomfortable, like have a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling at first, but over time it'll pull the bone out of the way and just open things up, because that's essentially what happened to me. So yeah, that's a game changer. Now the next thing is just quite simply squatting more and trying to get into the deep position more. It's as simple as that, literally. So if you can't squat deep and you have tight hips, just do bodyweight squats every day and focus on getting deeper and lower and lower and lower. And over time, your hips will internally rotate more, and you'll be able to enter that deeper position because your brain's going to be like, oh, it's safe to do this. And you'll open up and you'll be able to squat deeper. It's as simple as that. Because like we talked about ankles quite a lot, and they do matter and they do play a role in deep squatting, but hips play an even bigger role, I would say, in terms of reaching depth. Because there's a lot of people that can squat deep and their knees don't even go over their toes. It's just because their hips are so mobile. And now this is something you do prior to every warm up. I know you get the plate and you sit in a deep position, Tom, and you really try to get comfortable there.
Yeah, I work the range of motion. I hold the plate in front of me, almost in a sumo squat, like really wide, and like really make sure, especially like my adductors, I always find that they can be quite tight at the start. Then I slowly move my feet in and in and in, using the plate to kind of rock side to side, like bias one side at a time, kind of, work that range of motion. And then, 5-10 minutes later, I can, I've literally gained like inches of my mobility, and I can squat way better than if I just went straight into squats. Like it's actually like a non-negotiable for me to do that.
100%. 100%. But yeah, if you want to get better at something, you got to do it more. It's as simple as that. Simple as that. But yeah, we hope this podcast helped you guys out. If you have any questions, leave them below. If you want more personalized and tailored help from us and you want us to coach you to jump high, there's a link down below where you can apply for Jumpmaster X. And without further ado, we'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Yes.